INEC's National Commissioner in charge of Nasarawa, Kogi and Kwara State, Mohammed Haruna, has presented the certificate of return to Yaya Bello at a ceremony attended by the Commissioner of Police in Kogi State, which held at the INEC's office in Lokoja, the state capital. Bello of the APC, Musa Wada of the PDP and Natasha Akpoti of the Social Democratic Party, the SDP, were the top contenders in the November 16 polls. The latter two have rejected the results and are calling for a cancellation of the elections. Does INEC see it from their point of view, though? Dino Milaye, who contested the Kogi West senatorial seat, stormed INEC's office with over 20 videos he says establishes violence and electoral malpractices. Will he be heard in an election that has raised great concerns for many? What if the crisis of the PDP and the SDP are heard by INEC or the courts? What then? Data feeds are coming through in one place simultaneously on all our social media platforms, channelstv.com and on youtube.com/channelsweb. You can follow us right now on m.channelstv.com and on Facebook as well. We've got all our platforms and social media covered. Be part of the show. Tweet at Gimba Umar CTV. Use the hashtag State of the Nation and let's get your thoughts in. The suspected Port Harcourt serial killer, Gracious David West, has made a U-turn in his plea to not guilty in court. West had allegedly confessed to have lured his victims in Port Harcourt and in Lagos to hotels, drugging and strangulating them to death. The lawyer to the suspect, Vincent Chukwu, who backed the change of plea, dismissing his earlier submission. The defendant had earlier pleaded not guilty, to the 9-count charge of murder before Justice Adolphus Anebile of the Rivers State High Court. What does this mean to the judiciary? What message does this portray to Nigerians? The chairman of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, Professor Issa Sage, has confirmed the arrest of former Attorney General of the Federation, Minister of Justice, Mr. Mohammed Adoke. Professor Sage, during a courtesy visit to the headquarters of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, said that the arrest is the latest success in the fight against corruption under the federal government. Is the arrest a true picture of the claims of the PACAC chair? We'll analyze the situation right here. It's prime time in Lagos, and this is State of the Nation. Welcome everyone, I am Gimba Umar. This is State of the Nation. Let's get started. The former Attorney General of the Federation, Minister of Justice, Mr. Mohammed Adoke, has been arrested in Dubai. He is facing criminal charges bordering on alleged abuse of office and money laundering with respect to the granting of the oil prospecting license OPL 245 to Shell and ENI, brought against him and 4 others by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, we have been told. A senior advocate of Nigeria and human rights lawyer, Olu-Adegboruwa, joins us from Lagos Island via Skype. Many thanks indeed for joining us at this time. This obviously is seen as a plus by some, being a long-drawn process. Does it surprise you, though, that Mr. Adoke has now been arrested?
Thank you very much. I believe that by now, most Nigerians know the standpoint of the present administration in respect of the fight against corruption. And I must commend the president, especially, and the vice president. Without any doubt, both of them have demonstrated capacity. And they have shown their intention to the people of Nigeria to recover, all money that probably have found themselves in wrong hands. So to that extent, I believe that I join those who say that this administration seems committed to the fight against corruption. But whether that fight is succeeding, whether it is being lost, it can only be a determination of the judiciary. The gateway to fight corruption is the judiciary. And so we do not assess or measure the success or otherwise of the fight against corruption via media trial or statements made on newspapers or on television. Because the only agency that can determine whether somebody is corrupt or not, it is the court under the Constitution, Section 6. So to
If
that extent,
if I
only
may
the
butt
court
in
can.
here, just so that I can get as many questions across to you as possible, because I understand that the lines are beginning to break. Your senior colleague, Professor Sage, said this. Let me quote him saying this. He said that the fight against corruption is gaining momentum under the Buhari-led federal government due to the fight backs from its beneficiaries. Does this arrest reconcile, very key, does this arrest reconcile the position of the government that it is winning this anti-corruption war?
I don't think that I shared that sentiment entirely, in the sense that the agency that is empowered, like I said, is the court. In the case of the former Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Adoke, I think that I'm aware that there are cases in court filed by himself in respect of whether he should be arrested or not. So to that extent, if we are to fight the war against corruption, we must also respect the judiciary. And in that regard, if orders have been made in respect of his arrest, those orders should be obeyed. Because eventually when he's arrested, he has to be brought before the court for trial. So in that regard, I believe that it is for the court to examine whether this process of arrest follows due process of law or it does not. And that's why I said that it's only the court that can determine the success or otherwise of the fight against corruption. But nonetheless, I commend the current administration in the efforts made towards that objective.
Now, just looking at a further look at what Professor Sage said, he said it is a continuous thing. So when Nigerians pretend, in his words, he says that Nigerians are pretending. When Nigerians pretend and say, what is the difference this government has brought into the fight against corruption? What has been achieved? There is no difference. It amazes me, he says. But you have been fighting this corruption as well yourself. You've represented people in court. You've represented and you stand for the process as you just submitted right now. But do you feel that the kind of prosecution of corruption cases in Nigeria is such that will give the government a thumbs up to say that perhaps the international community will give a pass mark to this administration, that perhaps you're going about it the right way? Or not?
I don't think anybody has any doubt that there has been a lot of momentum shown by this administration in respect of the fight against corruption. People who otherwise were regarded as untouchable have been touched. And those areas where we thought we could not get an inroad, there's been a lot of effort made and very daring effort in that regard. But the general concern of everybody is that no matter the success, no matter the zeal in any war against corruption, it must be subjected under the rule of law. Once we get to a situation where those who are fighting corruption see themselves above the law, then it's going to be a problem. Because in the fight against corruption, there are bound to be mistakes here and there. And if those mistakes cannot be subjected to the rubric of the rule of law, then it becomes a subjective war that can be subject to abuse. And that is a concern of everybody. You know that under Obasanjo's regime, a governor was tried and taken back from USA. So it's not strange to arrest high-profile public officers from other foreign countries where they are domiciled. It's not strange at all. Our concern is that no effort seemed to have been made to empower the judiciary to properly carry out the war against corruption. And if you look at the experience of this administration in particular, the judiciary has become totally traumatized. The judiciary has become totally clipped and stabbed or formed, such that in most cases, people think that even those who are ordinarily innocent, when they appear before the court nowadays, it is a matter of doubt whether any judge has the courage in the current dispensation to really administer justice according to the conscience, according to the law. So there is that fear that the judiciary has been properly traumatized, and such that it thinks that the balance is not properly weighed between those who are being charged and those who are charging them. So I think that is the major
When last
concern
week,
that...
if you can hear me, Mr. Adegboruwa, I just want to butt in, my apologies. Still, with regards to this anti-corruption war, when last week the current Attorney General of the Federation, Malami, whittled down the powers of the EFCC and the ICPC concerning the seizure of assets, scrapping all assets recovery committees, that's what he did. He directed in Part 3, subsection 5, Section 5, subsection 1, that a non-conviction-based forfeiture shall be conducted by his office. Will this derail the corruption process, since data seems to be a major challenge in this country?
No, not at all. The step taken by the Honorable Attorney General is supported by law. The act creating the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission places that agency under the Federal Ministry of Justice, directly supervised by the Honorable Attorney General. Indeed, all prosecutions being undertaken by EFCC are done on behalf and with the consent of the Attorney General, who under the Constitution is the Chief Law Officer of the Federation. He can discontinue any case filed in court by the EFCC. So in that regard, the EFCC Act permits the Attorney General to issue regulations that will harmonize or give effect to the war against corruption or any other criminal prosecution. And I think what the Honorable Attorney General is doing is to ensure that there is some kind of collation in respect of data to ensure that transparency is involved in terms of forfeiture, because a lot of allegation is being raised that maybe there is no auditing. You know, the National Assembly said just this week that for the past 20 years, most law enforcement agencies have not audited their accounts. And I think that's a major concern for Nigerians, to be sure that the money we are recovering from people have a specific purpose, and we can actually put a number to them and ensure that the assets also being recovered have records in terms of the nexus between the Office of the Attorney General and the EFCC. So to that extent, I believe that the regulation made by the Attorney General is in order.
Okay, in bringing this to a close, let me just get your thoughts on this one, because a lot of people are concerned on whether or not this case, this arrest rather, in Dubai will be prosecuted in Dubai, or will we have to bring that case back to Nigeria? As we know, the case of the former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Desiani Alison Madueke, is still pending. She's somewhere in London. These are the high-profile people in the government's books at the moment right now. Will we have to bring them back home to prosecute those cases?
Whichever system is to be adopted will depend on the kind of bilateral agreement that Nigeria has with the countries involved. And that's why I said I join other Nigerians to commend this administration for the bold steps taken in the fight against corruption. But the caveat I always give is that we don't fight corruption through media trial. Efforts should be made to follow due process. It may be long, it may seem frustrating, but that is the surest way we can actually say we are recording any success. So I think it's for the anti-corruption agencies to ensure that they team up with the nations where any individual who seems to have any resources belonging to the rest of us is hiding, and they can then bring them back to face a trial.
Well,
we're
going to have to let it rest. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Olu-Adegboruwa, thank you so much indeed for sharing your views with us and analysing the situation of the former Attorney General of the Federation, Mohammed Adoke, who's been arrested in Dubai.